The flashing red and blue lights sliced through our calm suburban afternoon like a thunderclap in a church. On my phone's security feed, I watched 2 officers burst through Oak Ridge Estate's front gate, faces tight with purpose. And right there on my doorstep stood Susan Higgins, our self-proclaimed queen and HOA president, waving a shiny key in the air like it was her badge of authority. Her face was crimson, twisted with fury, as she screamed at my locked door, completely unaware that my 12-year-old son, Julian, was inside, quietly recording everything on his phone. What Susan didn't realize was that in just a few minutes, she'd be the one answering questions, not asking them. This is how an entitled HOA president learned the hard way that not every door opens just because she demands it, and that calling the cops can sometimes backfire spectacularly. My name's Arthur Vance. I'm a single father and a software engineer. 3 months ago, Julian and I moved into Oak Ridge Estates, a gated community that I thought would be peaceful, modern, and safe. The lawns were perfect, the schools had great ratings, and the HOA rules seemed reasonable on paper. What I didn't expect was Susan Higgins, the woman who treated her HOA title like she was the mayor, sheriff, and supreme judge of the neighborhood all rolled into one. From day one, she made it clear she didn't approve of what she called unsupervised children. The first time she saw Julian walking home alone from the bus stop, she cornered me in the driveway like she was doing me a favor, with that sugary tone that barely hid the insult. She said maybe I should consider after-school care because, according to her, single parents often struggle with proper supervision. I told her politely that Julian was 12, smart, independent, and completely fine being home for a couple of hours after school. Plus, I worked from home and kept an eye on him through our smart security system. That should have been the end of it. But Susan wasn't the type to back down when told no. A week later, she started making up new rules that weren't written anywhere. She claimed the HOA bylaws prohibited children under 16 from being left alone at home. When I asked to see those bylaws, she told me they were being updated and I'd get a copy soon. That copy, of course, never came. Over the next few weeks, Susan's obsession grew. Every afternoon, her silver SUV would appear right as the school bus arrived. She'd slow roll past our driveway, pretending to check mailboxes or street signs, but always keeping her eyes on our front door. Sometimes she even parked across the street, just watching. Julian started asking me why the mean lady was always spying on him. Things came to a head one Tuesday in October. I was in the middle of a crucial video conference with clients in Japan when my phone buzzed with alerts from our smart home system. Someone was trying to unlock our front door again and again, but the key wasn't working. Then came the sound I'll never forget. Susan's shrill voice echoing through the security speakers, ordering Julian to open the door immediately. My blood ran cold as I switched to the live feed. There she was, jamming a key into the lock, muttering something about an HOA master key and a welfare check. Julian, bless that kid, stayed calm. Just like we practiced, he pressed the panic button that sealed the house and activated every security camera. A second later, my phone rang. "Dad," Julian said steadily, "that Susan lady's trying to break in. She says she has a master key, but it's not working." I told him he did everything right and to stay put. Through the speaker, I spoke directly to her. "Susan, you are trespassing. Leave my property now." Instead of leaving, she doubled down. Her face turned redder than a stoplight as she pulled out her phone. To my disbelief, she actually dialed 911, putting on her best hysterical performance. She told the dispatcher there was an abandoned child inside, possibly hurt, and she couldn't get in to help. She even claimed she was performing an authorized HOA welfare check, accusing me of neglect. The second she hung up, I called 911 myself, explaining that an unauthorized person was attempting to enter my home while my son was safe inside. The dispatcher assured me that officers were already en route. I shut down my meeting, grabbed my keys, and sped home with my heart hammering. When I pulled into Oak Ridge Estates, the flashing lights were already painting the houses red and blue. 2 officers, Reynolds and Hayes, stood at my porch while Susan ranted about HOA safety rules and parental irresponsibility. Inside, Julian followed my instructions perfectly. He stayed calm and spoke through the video doorbell, telling the officers he was fine and just doing his homework. By the time I stepped out of my car, Susan was pointing at me dramatically, declaring, "That's him. That's the negligent father who left his child alone." Officer Reynolds gave me a look, half amusement, half disbelief. He asked me quietly to explain what happened. I walked up to the door, pulled out my real house key, and unlocked it in one clean turn, while Susan's so-called master key hung uselessly from her fingers. Julian was at the kitchen table when I walked in, his math homework still neatly spread out like nothing had happened. For a 12-year-old who'd just been through an attempted break-in, he looked astonishingly calm. The officers checked on him first, confirming he was unharmed, had food and water, and could reach me at any time. Then I turned on the living room TV and pulled up the security footage. The room went quiet as the video played. It showed Susan marching up to our door, waving her so-called master key and forcing it into the lock like she owned the place. The timestamp revealed she'd been trying for nearly 10 minutes before she ever called the police. Officer Hayes crossed his arms and asked flatly, "Ma'am, where did you get that key?" Susan's confident smile flickered. She stammered something about HOA emergency protocols and authorized access for safety. When pressed, she admitted she'd made a copy of a maintenance key during a previous inspection for emergencies. The officers exchanged sharp looks. Duplication of a homeowner's key without permission. That wasn't safety, it was criminal intent. That's when I showed them the file I'd been compiling for weeks. Screenshots of her fake HOA rules, dated notes of every time she'd parked outside to watch Julian, and witness statements from neighbors. Mrs. Garcia across the street had even shared her doorbell footage. Susan, sitting in her car for 20 minutes straight, eyes locked on our house. Officer Reynolds' tone hardened. He reminded Susan that filing a false 911 report about a child in danger was a serious misuse of emergency services. The more he spoke, the smaller she seemed. The once arrogant president of the HOA was shrinking under the weight of her own lies. Outside, neighbors started to gather, watering plants, pretending to check mail, but clearly watching the whole scene unfold. A few phones were raised. The gossip train was already boarding. Susan noticed, too. Her face flushed red, then pale, as the authority she'd clung to for years dissolved in front of her audience. Officer Hayes asked to see the HOA bylaws, granting her any right to enter a resident's home. Susan faltered, claiming the documents were at her house. Hayes cut her off gently but firmly. "Ma'am, no HOA policy overrides state property laws. You cannot enter a private home without permission." Then came the words I'll never forget. "Susan Higgins, you are being cited for attempted unlawful entry and false reporting to emergency services." Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She sputtered about her leadership duties and neighborhood safety, but the officers were unmoved. As they wrote up the citations, I calmly informed them that I'd be pressing charges and my attorney would follow up. The mention of an attorney drained the last color from her face. The next HOA meeting was legendary. Word had spread faster than wildfire. Half the neighborhood showed up, many who hadn't attended in years. The air buzzed with anticipation. I brought my attorney, Richard Brooks, an HOA specialist with a reputation for dismantling bullies like Susan. Richard laid everything out like a courtroom presentation. Unauthorized key duplication, attempted break-in, false reporting, harassment. It was all documented, time-stamped, and undeniable. He even called for a full audit of the HOA's key control policies to ensure no other homeowners had been compromised. As he spoke, the board members shifted uncomfortably. Thomas Carter, the treasurer, admitted Susan had tried to sneak in a motion for mandatory welfare checks without any board approval. Evelyn Mitchell, the secretary, produced the minutes showing the board had explicitly voted against granting her entry authority. One by one, they all distanced themselves from her. When the vote of no confidence came up, the result was unanimous. Even Susan's usual allies couldn't defend her now. The room erupted in murmurs as Susan shot to her feet, her chair screeching across the tile. "You'll regret this," she shouted, her voice cracking. "This neighborhood will fall apart without me." Then she stormed out, heels striking the floor like a retreating drumbeat. But the consequences didn't stop there. The false reporting charge carried a $5,000 fine. The unlawful entry charge, amplified by the fact she had premeditated the act by duplicating a key, became a misdemeanor. Her precious real estate license, which she'd bragged about constantly, was suspended pending review. When our civil case went to court, the judge didn't mince words. Susan's harassment, false accusations, and emotional harm to Julian were undeniable. The settlement ordered her to pay $15,000 in damages and legal fees. She was permanently banned from serving on any HOA board and sentenced to 100 hours of community service. The final blow came with the restraining order. She was forbidden from coming within 100 feet of our home. I'll never forget the expression on her face when the judge read that verdict. The same woman who once strutted around our neighborhood barking orders now stood trembling in designer heels, tears streaking her makeup as the bailiff explained her probation terms. Susan Higgins had spent years trying to control others. But that October, when she tried to use her fake master key, she unlocked the one door she couldn't. Closed the door to her own downfall.